Every person needs to be a social seller to win today. So we have an Oxford debate. And anyone who doesn't know what an Oxford debate or participated in an Oxford debate is that we're going to hear several stories. We're going to hear fors and against, and each side is going to put their case. Social selling is really about developing one-on-one relationships of part of the selling process. Social media is often used to interact directly with sales leads, not to be confused or be compared with social marketing, which of course interacts with a whole load of people at one time. So that's what we're talking about today, is every salesperson needs to be a social seller to win today. So can we just have, I'll just wait for these couple to come in now. We're just going to have a show of hands because we'd like to get from the audience your thoughts on this. So can we have a show of hands, all those for every salesperson needs to be a social seller to win. Can we have a show of hands, please? Who agrees with that? So we're probably about 75% currently, aren't we? At the start. Okay, cool. It starts with the for. We're going to have 3 minutes from the for that statement. I'd like to welcome Tom Castley and Mark on my for side. This is the fors. And against that statement, we have David, obviously, and we have Stephanie. So welcome to you all, and thanks for your participation as well. It's great. So we'll start. You've got 3 minutes for the for team. You're going to put your case, and we're going to listen to that. Over to you.
Thank you. It would appear it's ours to lose. No pressure. Okay, so I want to put social selling in the context of the customer, because it's all about the customer. It's not about us as salespeople. We have to be present when buyers shop. Remember that our customers are 50% through the buying journey, often before they want to engage with the salesperson. So we have to become, through social selling, influencers. We have to be able to communicate directly to the people, to influence how they are thinking. It's not about buying, it's about engaging. So again, when we say that the social seller is needed to win, we've got to think earlier in that sales cycle that we are there, we are influencing what they're saying, because if we're not doing it as salespeople, somebody else is doing it. So we can't ignore it. It's there, it has to be done by us. Also remember that our buyers are becoming more and more of the millennial generation. They're used to being influenced this way. There's an awful lot of people who buy something because some family called Kardashian wear a watch, will go and buy a watch. So we have to be in there to win. Now we have some facts that Tom will hand over.
Thank you. So 84% of C-level executives have cited that they have made a significant buying decision for their organization purely off a recommendation of somebody in their social network. We see the substantial growth in sub-networks, whether it's CSO UK, whether it's the Revenue Collective, whether it's the Sales Operations Network, where even in this face-to-face medium, we are taking advice and guidance off our peers and cutting through a plethora of data and challenge to make important decisions in our organizations. 65% of salespeople who use social selling fill their pipeline compared to 47% of reps who do not. 78% of salespeople using social media outperform their peers. 31% of B2B professionals said social selling allowed them to build a deeper relationship with their clients. And we heard Chris earlier talking about our customers need to trust us more than they trust themselves to put our careers or put their careers in our hands.
30
to
seconds
move forward
left.
something. Thank you. 4 in 10 reps have closed 2 to 5 deals directly thanks to social media this year, according to CSO Insights. And using social selling tools can increase the average deal size by 35%. I think that makes for a very compelling case that social selling across the online and the offline channels is not just a nice to have, it's our core to our survival.
That's it. Thank you very much. So you've heard some input for the fours, and we're going to go over now to David and Steph for the againsts.
Thank you. So I'm going to start by saying I'm quite possibly one of the worst millennials, because I'm standing up here telling you that you don't have to be a social seller to succeed. I'm going to begin by being pretty pedantic. The topic of this debate is that every salesperson needs to be a social seller. We all know that we have to be where our customers are, and not all of our customers are on social media. Therefore, we don't all need to be social sellers. I'd also like to point out the role of marketing and the role of sales and how they actually differ. It's down to the marketer to create an overarching image that presents your company in a positive light. That might include social media, monitoring it and managing it. It also might include content creation. Whereas the role of the salesperson, as Chris took us through today, is all about building trust, and that's the other piece of the puzzle. As we found out, you can build trust. Probably not through emails, through content. Actually, you can be far more effective when you're on the phone and you're having kind of face-to-face communication and build that trust. I think social selling is an effective way to sell. My final point will be that the 80-20 rule, we all know it. Active listening is the most important part of the sales process, in my opinion. It's how you understand the objections, you understand their challenges, you understand their pain points. And if all we're doing is posting and sharing, how are we actually listening to our customers?
So as some of you may have noticed, I did just miss out on the millennial generation. I've used social media. I use social media a lot. In fact, I've just started doing some social selling. I tried TikTok last week. Didn't sell anything, but if anybody wants to buy 4 kilograms of coke or a tactical nuclear weapon, I'm your man. For me, social selling is killing the art of selling. Social selling to me is impersonal. It lacks focus. It's a bit throwing of stuff at the wall and something will stick approach. It doesn't require a lot of skills, except maybe the ability to write posts. And as you know, a lot of people can't write posts. But as Steph has just said, it does not build relationships. It's a lazy way to sell. I actually think it's marketing's job, and I think marketing do it far better than we do anyway. The bottom line is, to me, you can't sell based on relationship alone, but you can't sell without relationships. Social selling should be selling in a social environment, not sat behind a Mac. Just to pick up on one point that Tom came out with, 31% of social sellers say it builds stronger relationships. That means 69%
30 seconds.
Doesn't. Social selling is killing something that to me is very sacred, the art of face-to-face selling. That's why we're all in the positions we're in. Thank you.
Okay, that's cool, thank you. So you've heard from the against and some interesting points raised there. We're going to go back to the fours now. We're going to be backing up, having heard the other side now. They're going to be backing up their four. So over to you. We've got 2 minutes to add to your case.
I'd like to thank my colleagues for their brave effort at denouncing the power of social media. And I love the fact that they've completely restricted this down to TikTok and social media in the sense of what children use, as opposed to Slack, which would be considered social media, LinkedIn as the widest business forum, but also dedicated social forums as CSO will be creating for us, where it does actually enrich that social engagement. Selling is being social. We have to build a relationship. And you don't propose on the first date. Actually, one or two might have done. But most of the time, it's about building up a presence and building up trust. And that needs to be done one brick at a time. When you look at references, when you look at conferences, these are the physical elements related to social selling. To my mind, these days, a reference is more powerful today than any other form of kind of selling proof. Through social networking, we can respond to far more people and engage our customers and our prospects together in a social way that actually engenders decision making, drives profitability, drives trust, and reduces sales cycle time.
Thank you. Having heard the other side, now it's over to the against team.
Got excited then.
So over to you. You've got a couple of minutes to
Thank you very
come
much.
back with that. Back up your case.
So one of the things I enjoyed the most about my conversations with Tom is his use of statistics. But one of the things I think is quite important to do is look into where we're actually getting those statistics from. Earlier, Tom, you talked about 85% of C-suite buyers will use social media to make their decisions. If we look into the source of that white paper, it was actually conducted by IDC. And who was it that was their sponsor? LinkedIn. So I would question whether there's maybe a bit of writer's bias included within those statistics. So what I would rather do is look at actually my own personal experience over the last 9 months, and the biggest buying decisions that I've made within my company. Our CRM system, I've looked at outreach, which we've brought on board, and I've also looked at using an outsourced sales partner in air marketing. All of those decisions were based on referrals and recommendations from our network, not through social media, LinkedIn posts and connection attempts. The reason that we were put in touch with outreach was actually as a result of my CEO hearing really great things about them, not because of a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So you've heard a little bit more backup there. So you're now, the 4 team now, we're going to engage directly, so you can actually, we've got a minute to actually engage and come back with your argument for the 4s against what's been said there. So fire away.
Yes, Stephanie, your example you just used, if I took the word LinkedIn away and I said, how did they get the references, or your CEO get the references, would it be fair to say it's because they socialized the question with their network and then they got back an answer?
How are we going to go about this one? Right. I would say that it's a result of relationships and credibility and trust, and that has been through my CEO's relationships, but not through social media, which is social selling.
Okay, cool. Your chance to go back directly and come up with a few comments for the other side.
So I am interested in the stats, and I think the stats are, you can make what you want of those. The fact is, you talk, Tom, it's about building relationships. How do you build proper, long-term, deep and meaningful relationships, which in complex sales cycles is critical? And I look around the room, some of you in very complex environments. How do you do that over social networks?
So the art of selling ultimately, as you get closer to the point of decision, is we move closer together physically, emotionally, hopefully, maybe if it's a big deal, spiritually. But ultimately, the idea of social selling, online and offline, is to influence that buying decision. Very few people will engage through a social network and actually end up transacting on something. This is supposed to help you build your pipeline and influence and bring people into your buying area. It's not the be all and end all. We weren't advocating that.
Okay. Final 1 minute each side now before we throw it open to the audience now for some Q&As. And so just 1 minute. You've got a final thing to say. Help yourself.
Yeah, so I think by the very nature that we're all here, we all believe in social selling. The key question comes is, do we associate social selling purely with online? That is not what we're saying. You have to be social in order to sell. You have to have a means of sharing. You have to listen. And I can honestly say that one of the reasons why I'm standing here was due to conversations with Josh. I spoke to Josh for the first time when I arrived here. Every other conversation took place through some form of media and messaging as we went backwards and forwards. It was sharing ideas, it was sharing insights, and it was socializing. So social selling is key to building a relationship, but as Thomas said, it's not the only part.
Cool. You have the last minute as well to do your against.
There's some good arguments from my colleagues on my left. I would argue that we are encouraging lazy salespeople by putting too much reliance on social selling in terms of using social media. If we relied that heavily, or we continue to rely that heavily, companies like Air Marketing, companies like Connect and Sell do not have a future in this business. Because we'll do everything online. We'll lose the people interaction. We'll lose the sales skills that we've all worked so hard to put together. We had a session this morning, I don't know where Ginny is, she's here somewhere, where we talked about the lack of training that we're putting into salespeople. We don't need to spend that money on training because we're just giving them a laptop and they're going to do it all online. And if we allow this progression to continue, over time, it will be all online. And we will have no relationship between buyer and seller.
Cool. Thank you very much. Compelling arguments for both sides, fors and against. Is it about social? Is it about social media? Or is it about traditional building trust and confidence in sales relationships, face to face? So we're going to open it to the floor now. We would like some questions from you. There's a mic coming round because we want to hear you loud and clear. You can put to the fors or against whatever question you'd like to ask.
I think it's probably a bit of a statement as well as a question. Surely social media is just...
Yeah, a bit nearer. Lovely.
Sorry, surely social media is just another channel. That's all it is, because channels are forms of communication between you and who you want to sell to. Social media is a channel. It needs to be as part of the armory. It shouldn't be just a sole usage.